Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, if production stops, alright, if food production stops today, for whatever reason, humanity has about 90 days worth of food. We always hear that a supermarket has 3 days worth of food. Well, I believe that that's false. I believe that they have hours worth of food. It just depends on the conditions that's occurring at that time. If there's panic buying going on, ladies and gentlemen, because something happens that finally opens people's eyes, those that are not prepared are the ones that are going to go out there and strip the shelves. I love to read articles from Mr. Snyder, ladies and gentlemen, because he's a very intelligent man and everything that he writes just makes sense. And here he says we are far closer to a potential global cataclysm that most people would dare to imagine. Right now, leaders from all across the political spectrum are openly warning us that a worldwide food crisis is coming. And, you know, I have a small payday prep to do on the second half of this video that I'm going to include in this video. And it just reminds me of a conversation that my wife had with someone yesterday over the phone. And you'll be able to listen in on that here in a few minutes. But when people in the Western world hear of such warnings, most of them assume that it will be just something that affects poor people in Africa or Asia. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called normalcy bias. It can never happen to me. Unfortunately, that will not be the case this time around. We truly are in unprecedented territory, and we are going to see things happen in the months ahead that once would have been absolutely unthinkable. Global hunger has already been steadily rising for the last couple of years due to this health crisis. And now a confluence of events here in 2022 threatens to create a true global nightmare. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't even think he's being hyperbolic. You know, here when he says nightmare and he says cataclysm, think about it. We are 90 days away from being out of food as a world if production stopped today. How many people have been talking about, well, what if we have a cyber attack? What if we have an EMP? We need energy, we need electricity, we need oil in order to produce anything. So what if something happens that interrupts that supply chain of energy? How are we going to produce food amongst anything else? At this moment, we are still eating food that was previously grown, and I've talked about that before. We're still eating off of last year's food, ladies and gentlemen, but it is the food that will be grown in the months ahead that will be the real problem. And he says because the truth is that we don't have much of a buffer to work with. Like I've been talking about our carryovers. Our carryovers have been diminishing over the last few years. And between last year and this year alone of our grain carryovers, it went down like 27-30% less this year than what we had last year. So we have less of a buffer, and he is correct here. David Friedberg is an early Google executive who started a farming insurance company. And he just told the All In podcast that the earth operates on a 90-day food supply. So let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. The earth operates on a 90-day food supply. Are you prepped? Seriously, are you prepared? If you just happen to stumble across this video and you're still here after a minute or two of me babbling and you heard that, why are you not researching it? Stay till the end of the video because there's great information in here. But you should be researching what I'm telling you right now so that you can convince yourself to go get stocked up for your family. He continues to say it is estimated that approximately 7.9 billion people currently live on the planet, and feeding everyone is a real challenge, even if everything goes perfectly. It is a logistical nightmare, ladies and gentlemen. Can you just imagine all of the logistics that goes around, all of the planning, all of the moving pieces? It's incredible how we do it, to tell you the truth. I mean, I think that we would be better off as humanity, as a society, if we were a lot more decentralized. If we went back to a time where there were tens of millions of farmers instead of just a couple of million like we have now, where every little town had several farms and that you can go barter with, instead of most of our food being centralized amongst a few large corporations. Unfortunately, global conditions have been much less than perfect for the past couple of years. And Friedberg says that the new global energy crisis has pushed the cost of key fertilizer components to levels that are absolutely insane. I'm not going to go over those costs right now because I've gone over them in several previous videos. But he says that many farmers all over the world will try to grow food without fertilizer this year, but that will result in a whole lot less food being grown. Without fertilizer, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or love it or hate it, we're not going to grow as much food. We're not going to have as much of a yield. I would say that if you went out there and tried to grow food without fertilizer, like the mega corporations do, I think that we'll get maybe 30% of what we normally get. In one of his latest videos, Chris Martenson compared a rice plant that were grown with phosphorus to rice plants that were not given any phosphorus. Go check that out. I actually watched that video, and Chris Martenson from Peak Prosperity, great guy. I was absolutely blown away by the difference, and the difference is pretty big, ladies and gentlemen. And when you see those pictures, if you go watch that video, I'll try to leave a link to that video on the upper right hand corner, okay? So you can go watch it because it's worth watching. When you see that picture, you'll see why I said about 30% yield, because that's what it looks like. As global food production drops precipitously, there will be not enough food for everyone in the months ahead. You'll hear what I have to say about the conversation that my wife had with a friend last night. It's incredible, ladies and gentlemen. You can warn people all you want, and some people will still think you're crazy. They may not call you crazy to your face, especially if it's someone that you know, but they'll still think you're crazy. But it is your door that they'll come knocking on. Of course, the wealthy nations will buy up what is available, driving up prices in the process, and the poorer nations will be left out in the cold. Now, let me remind you of something, ladies and gentlemen. I agree with what he's saying here, but I have to add something to that. Even if you live in a nation that is seen as wealthy, like for example, here in the United States, go ahead and apply what he just said to the actual people of the nation, right? He said here that the wealthy nations will buy stuff up at the same time, driving up the prices. Well, now take that and apply it to the people of that wealthy nations. The people of that wealthy nations are going to buy up whatever they want because they can afford it, leaving the poorer people, the working class, to get whatever they can get with their devalued dollars. But those people that are already up in the higher rungs of the ladder, they're going to get what they're going to get, and they're going to leave you the scraps. This is why I say now is the time to prepare, because there is still going to be food available. It's just, are you going to be able to afford it? I'm going to do a video here on silver, okay? Because I have a very good example of why it's a good idea to keep silver for your excess wealth, all right? Please don't say you can't eat silver, all right? I know somebody's going to say you can't eat silver. But like I said, there is going to be food available. Are you going to be able to afford it? In fact, this is already starting to happen, he says. In March, the global price of food rose at the fastest monthly pace ever recorded. Incredible. I'm going to go ahead and read this part right here. He says that March's food price index from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations printed 159.3 points in March, up 19.5 or 19.15 points from February. Wow, that is a 33% increase. Incredible. The March rise in food prices is stunning. 12.64% month over month, almost double the previous record. Incredible. If you are looking for red flags, you just found one. Food riots have already begun in some parts of the globe. For example, you can see a clip from the rioting in Peru right here. And if you'd like to see that, I'm going to leave the link to this article so you can go click on that hyperlink if you like. Thanks to the war in Ukraine, the price of wheat was up almost 20% last month alone. As I've discussed previously, Russia and Ukraine normally export enormous amounts of food to the rest of the planet. but that won't be the case this year. Sadly, it is being projected that corn production in Ukraine will be cut by more than half in 2022, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that they won't be able to export anything because they're going to need to keep what they have in order to feed their own. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, here it says the Ukrainians have already announced that they will not be exporting any of their production this year because they needed to feed their own population during this war. Here in the United States, the bird flu pandemic continues to escalate, and as a result, the price of eggs has more than doubled in recent weeks. And you know what? I have not checked the price of eggs at Costco's. However, I would bet, ladies and gentlemen, that the price of eggs at Costco's are still the same than the last time I went. And it's because of the theory that I have, and I honestly don't know if this is how it works or not. But I think that big box stores like Costco's, they have contracts with producers and or manufacturers depending on what they're getting. And the producer or manufacturer of that item has to adhere to the price that they settled on in their contract until the contract expires, and then they can renegotiate prices. That's why sometimes, like the chicken in the can from Costco is a good example. The chicken in the can, even though chicken was going up everywhere else, Costco was still selling it at like $10.78 per 6-pack. And once they got rid of the stock that they had, they didn't have any chicken for a while. But then when the chicken came back, it was at the elevated price of $15.99. And he goes on to say, what is going to happen if this pandemic continues to wipe out millions of chickens every month? Meanwhile, certain shortages that have been simmering for a long time are now reaching critical levels. For example, Walgreens has announced that it is going to start rationing baby formula. I did a video about that yesterday, and I also included in that video, ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't watch it and in case you have children who need formula, that I included a link on that video where you can go and learn how to make your own. Okay, and I saw a comment from that video, from yesterday's video on the baby formula, where someone says it's called breast milk. You know, feed your child with breast milk. It's natural. It's the best thing for a child. I happen to agree with that. But there are cases where a mother can't feed their children with breast milk for whatever reason, okay? And he says here, according to optimists, things are supposed to be getting back to normal by this point. But instead, things are getting worse. According to the Daily Mail, 29% of top-selling formulas are out of stock at stores across the nation right now. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning. Everyone agrees that the global food crisis is going to intensify in the months ahead. And David Friedberg is trying to warn us about what could happen if widespread panic sets in. Now let's see what he has to say. This ought to be interesting. And he says here, quote, I don't know about death, but there will be famine. Famine is to be short of calories. There will be a strategic reserve released, but it won't be enough. We won't have enough. The way supply chains are set up, there will not be enough, he said. Man, he said there will not be enough a lot of times. As you know, with any market, there is scarcity. People will come in and buy at a faster pace, panic buying. So this is a market dynamic. It is not like people are physically hoarding loaves of bread, but commodity traders, countries, strategic reserves start buying up what they can to prepare for the famine. So ladies and gentlemen, stock up before governments go out there and wipe out the shelves themselves. Because whose hands would you rather have your food in? In your hands, where you can control what you eat and when, or in the hands of government? Prices go even higher and it kicks other people out of the market. The whole thing gets ugly and fast. We have been warned over and over again that this was coming, and now it's here. You may have not noticed, but my articles have been longer than usual lately, and that is because there is so much more information that I need to share with you every day, and I truly do appreciate it. So Mr. Snyder, please continue to write your articles, because in my opinion they're very enlightening. We truly are entering a full-blown planetary emergency, and I am trying to do my best to sound the alarm. Unfortunately, most of the population is still not taking this crisis seriously. And he finishes off with how I started the video. So many people out there are fully convinced that they will always be able to rely on the system. And a lot of them will continue to believe it, even as the system literally collapses around them. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're prepping. I know that I'm shouting this every single day, and I'm going to continue to do so, because one more person that wakes up to the fact that you need to be prepared, that's one more person that's going to be able to take care of their family. All right. Now, I hope that you stay for this second half of the video. It's just a small payday prep that I did to show you all that I do walk the walk, and I don't just sit here and talk the talk all the time. All right. Having said that, thank you very much. Listen, I believe I mentioned it on the second part of the video, but if you live in Fairbanks, or if you live in Alaska and you can get to Fairbanks, please take a look at the review video that I did of that small solar generator and the solar panel, because that entry is going to be for people that can get to Fairbanks to collect their prize. Now here's for the second half of the video. You know, I've been trying to warn people about what's coming ever since my beard was a lot darker than it is now. And now I see gray hair coming up in my head that I can't get rid of even when I get a haircut. And you know, I was hearing a conversation that my wife had with a friend this morning, and she had her on speaker, and she knew that I was there, but she was like, yeah, you know, I got a couple of weeks worth of food. That's enough. You know, I'm not really worried about anything. And I'm like, well, just take a look at your pantry and ask yourself how much those things that you have now cost a year ago. And that in itself ought to convince you to go ahead and stock up for more than just a couple of weeks. And it's going to break my heart when all of these things that we are used to come to an end. You know, having full supermarkets, they will come to an end. Ask yourself this question. Did the people in Venezuela back in 2012, when all of their financial crises started, did they ever think that there was going to be a day when they went into a supermarket and it was no longer full, when there was no food available? And trust me, there are full supermarkets in Venezuela right now. It's just that the people can't afford to buy there. Only a select few can afford to actually shop there. I talked to Billy from Frontier Preppers, who grew up in Cuba, and he said the same thing. There were supermarkets there while he was growing up that were full, that the shelves were full, and people would go inside of them just to get a taste of what air conditioning felt like. But they didn't go inside to shop because they couldn't afford to shop. It's what happens every time when a country's monetary system, when a country's money goes bad. And that is what's happening here. If your eyes are not open to that, do your own research. You don't have to believe me, but stock up, because now is the time to stock up. I went to Costco today and they had food, and I got things that I know we are going to eat in the future. I got things that I know that I can put away for long-term storage, and I know it will be good when I need them and when my family needs those items as well. This is why we prepare, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's go ahead and get the little stuff out of the way first. These are not preps right here. This is just something that I like to snack on every once in a while. These are the little mozzarella balls, and this is one of the things we got, but it's not a prep. Same thing with this, ladies and gentlemen. Never had it before, and my wife loves this white cheese, so I went ahead and got this because she'll probably love it. Now this is a prep. We have some of this that's about halfway gone, and each bottle is good for about a year. Now the only one that really has any allergy problems in our household is my wife. So the bottle that we have now is good for about another 6 months, and these are 365 tablets, so it should be good for about a year. I ended up getting 3 bags of these, which is just enough to make 2 batches in my freeze dryer. I have a small size freeze dryer, the one that comes with 3 trays. And these, ladies and gentlemen, we like to have these better than we like to have just regular chicken breast. These have a really good flavor to them. We take them and we put them in our air fryer. Comes out perfect every time. And they're very versatile. They don't have a distinctive flavor to them, so you can pretty much make it into whatever you want. My favorite way to have this is like chicken parmesan with some pasta, but you can take this and put any kind of sauce you want it and have it like with rice. It comes out great. You can even cook these up, cut them in little pieces, and have with a salad if you want. So we went ahead and got 3 bags of these. Now what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to show you all how I pack these away in the freezer so that it'll last you a long time in the freezer without it going freezer burnt. Tonight we are having some spaghetti with meat sauce, so I went ahead and grabbed a 3-pack of this organic ground beef in order to replace the 2 that we're using, and we had already used 1. So whenever we use one whole strip, which is 3 of these packs, we go ahead and buy another one and put it back in the freezer just towards the back. So what I do with this ground beef is I pressure can it, and it goes great with spaghetti sauce. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is a much cheaper way to do it, and I'm sure that when the day comes that we need to rely on this, this will be just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that not everyone is in the part of their preparedness plan where they should be storing long-term freeze-dried food. But if you are, take a look at Nutrient Survival. I stand behind this food because it is the most nutrient-dense food in the market. It tastes great, they have outstanding customer service, and the company is run by great people that I call my friends. You're not going to find a more nutrient-dense food that tastes good and is reasonably priced when compared to other major brands. I wouldn't stand behind Nutrient Survival if I didn't personally use it and love it. So feed your freedom with Nutrient Survival.